A woman in Kitchener, Ontario has worked for the same employer for 11 years. She is an administrative coordinator at a mid-sized logistics company. She earns $58,000 a year in base salary. She works overtime regularly, averaging about $7,200 in overtime pay annually. She has been there long enough to receive 3 weeks of vacation. Every year, her employer calculates her vacation pay on her base salary. $58,000, 6%, $3,480. She has never questioned it. It shows up on her pay stub. It matches the percentage on her offer letter. And nobody, not HR, not her manager, not payroll, has ever suggested it was wrong. It is wrong. Under the Ontario Employment Standards Act, 2000, the word that determines what vacation pay is calculated on is not base salary. It is wages, and wages, under Section 1 of that Act, includes every form of monetary remuneration paid to an employee, including overtime pay, commissions, shift premiums, and, specifically relevant to this video, vacation pay itself. Her employer should have been calculating 6% on $65,200, her base salary plus her overtime pay. That is $3,912 per year, not $3,480. The difference is $432 a year. Over the first 4 years of employment, when she was entitled to 4%, the shortfall was $288 per year. Over the 7 years since, at 6%, the shortfall has been $432 per year. The total underpayment across 11 years of employment is approximately $4,600. She does not know this. Her employer has not told her. Payroll has not flagged it. The Ministry of Labor has not sent a notice. The system that was supposed to protect her has the rules on the books. It just has no mechanism that guarantees the rules are followed without her asking. That is not an oversight. That is the system. To understand how this particular failure works, you have to understand what vacation pay legislation in Canada was designed to do. Paid vacation as a legal entitlement in Canada has roots in the post-war labor movement of the late 1940s, and what it actually does when the people who owe it are the same people responsible for calculating it. Paid vacation as a legal entitlement in Canada has roots in the post-war labor movement of the late 1940s. The principle was straightforward. A worker who had given their time and their body to an employer over the course of a year was entitled to paid rest, not unpaid rest, not rest at their own expense. Paid rest. That principle found its way into federal law. Ontario codified it. British Columbia codified it. Alberta codified it. Every province eventually did. Ontario codified it. British Columbia codified it. Alberta codified it. Every province eventually did. Employer payroll practices were subject to periodic audit. A worker who believed they had been underpaid could file a complaint. And for a period, the enforcement structure was adequate. Labor inspectors existed with real investigative power. Employer payroll practices were subject to periodic audit. A worker who believed they had been underpaid could file a complaint. For most salaried workers whose only income was a regular paycheck, the math was simple enough that errors were visible. Then 2 things happened simultaneously, and they dismantled nearly all of it. The first was the shift in what a paycheck actually looks like. Then 2 things happened simultaneously, and they dismantled nearly all of it. The first was the shift in what a paycheck actually looks like, and every single one of those components, under the plain language of most provincial employment standards legislation, is a wage. Every single one attracts vacation pay, overtime pay, commission income, performance bonuses, shift differentials, piece rate pay, severance, statutory holiday pay, and every single one of those components, under the plain language of most provincial employment standards legislation, is a wage. Every single one attracts vacation pay, and every single one of those components, under the plain language of most provincial employment standards legislation, is a wage. Every single one attracts vacation pay. But payroll departments did not adjust. Or more precisely, payroll software vendors made default assumptions, but payroll departments did not adjust. Or more precisely, payroll software vendors made default assumptions, and the default assumption was the simplest possible one. Calculate vacation pay on base salary. Apply the percentage. Done. And the default assumption was the simplest possible one. Calculate vacation pay on base salary. Apply the percentage. Done. The second thing that happened was enforcement erosion. Provincial labor ministries saw budget cuts across the 1990s and 2000s. The second thing that happened was enforcement erosion. Provincial labor ministries saw budget cuts across the 1990s and 2000s that reduced the capacity of proactive audit programs. The system shifted to complaint-driven enforcement, which means the calculation only gets reviewed when an employee files a complaint, which means the employer's incentive essentially disappeared, which means the employer's incentive to get it right, without external pressure, essentially disappeared. The rights did not disappear, which means the employer's incentive to get it right, without external pressure, essentially disappeared. The rights did not disappear. They are still on the books. Section 1 of the Ontario Act still defines wages exactly the way it always has. They are still on the books. Section 1 of the Ontario Act still defines wages exactly the way it always has. The Canada Labour Code still includes vacation pay itself in its definition of wages. The British Columbia Act still requires it on all earnings. The money is real. The entitlements are documented. And most Canadian employees have never been paid the correct amount. Today I am going to walk you through exactly what your employer is required to pay and what most of them are quietly not paying. Today I am going to walk you through exactly what your employer is required to pay and what they are quietly not paying. Let's start. Under Ontario's interpretation policy, wages includes regular salary or hourly pay, overtime pay, commissions, shift premiums, and differential pay, statutory holiday pay, and vacation pay that was previously paid to you. In Ontario, Section 1 of the Employment Standards Act, 2000 defines wages as monetary remuneration payable by an employer to an employee, which means when your employer calculates your vacation pay for this year, last year's vacation pay is supposed to be included. The definition is deliberately broad because the legislature intended it to be broad. Wages means what you are paid for your work, all of it. Under Ontario's interpretation policy, wages includes regular salary or hourly pay, overtime pay, commissions, shift premiums, and differential pay, statutory holiday pay, and vacation pay that was previously paid to you. That last item, read it again. Vacation pay that was previously paid to you is itself a wage. It compounds. Every year, the employer excludes prior vacation pay from a calculation. They are underpaying you. Every year, on a compounding basis. Let me show you the math concretely because abstract legal language stays invisible. Take an employee in Ontario. Base salary, $60,000. Under the Canada Labour Code, the definition of wages in Section 166 includes any amount payable for leave. The framework is clear. The federal framework is equally clear. Wages means what you earned, including prior vacation pay. Let me say that again. Assume this employee earned $6,000 in overtime in the past year. $60,000 base plus $6,000 overtime equals $66,000 in wages. If your employer paid you vacation pay in year 1, that vacation pay becomes part of your wage base for year 2. Every year matters. $69,600 times 6% equals $4,176. The difference between what most pay, $3,600, and what the Act requires, for $1,176, is $576 per year. Let me show you the math concretely because abstract legal language stays invisible. Take an employee in Ontario. Base salary, $60,000. Let me show you the math concretely because abstract legal language is how this stays invisible. Take an Ontario employee. $60,000. They have been employed for 6 years. They are entitled to 3 weeks of vacation, 6%. Calculate it correctly. The way most employers calculate it, $60,000 times 6% equals $3,600. The way the Act requires it, if you are in overtime. The way most employers calculate it, $60,000 times 6% equals $3,600. But the ESA requires more. Let's add the variables. Because employment standards in Canada are provincial and the details are not identical everywhere. Let's look at Ontario. ESA 2000. So the correct calculation base is $66,000 plus $3,600 equals $69,600. $69,600 times 6% equals $4,176. It adds up quickly. The word is wages, not salary, not base pay. Wages, as defined in Section 1, which is broad and inclusive. British Columbia, ESA Part 7, Sections 57 through 63. 4% for first 5 years, 6% thereafter. VC Act Section 1 is explicit. British Columbia. Employment Standards Act, Part 7. 4% for first 5 years, 6% thereafter. Wages in Section 1 is explicit. British Columbia. ESA Part 7. Sections 57 through 63. 4% for first 5 years, 6% thereafter. VC Act Section 1 is explicit. Alberta Employment Standards Code Sections 34 through 38. 4% for 5 years, 6% after. Amended by the 2019 Act. Check it. Federal employees. Canada Labour Code Part 3. Division 4. Thresholds at 1, 5, and 10 years. Rates. 4%, 6%, 8%. Clear levels. Quebec uses salary, but it's broadly defined. Prior indemnity is included in the base. Complaints go to the CNESSD. Know it. Exclusions are where most money is lost. Payroll departments ignore entire categories of wages. Overtime pay is the most common. Salary $55,000. The annual shortfall on overtime alone is between $360 and $540 per year. Commission income is quietly ignored too. Sales careers suffer. $40,000 base. A commissioned salesperson with $40,000 base and $30,000 commission has wages of $70,000. Vacation pay applies to all $70,000. Underpayment, $1,800 annually. Significant, shift premiums and differential pay. A nurse earning $3,800 in premiums is underpaid $228 per year. Hospital systems ignore these by default. Holiday pay. Stat pay is wages in Ontario, included in vacation base. Most employers exclude it. In a year with 9 holidays, that's $1,900 in wages. Compounding. Here's what they ignore. Overtime pay, the most common and expensive exclusion. Salary $55,000 plus overtime $9,000 equals $64,000 wages. Calculate on $64,000. Most employers calculate on $55,000. The annual shortfall on overtime pay alone, between $360 and $540 per year. Every year. Lost money. Step 2. Request complete records in writing. Email so there's a record. Ask for all wage categories for 2 years. Calculate the gap. Past 2 years. Truth first. Step 5. Consider civil claims for older amounts. Free legal help is available at clinics across Canada. Find yours online. Clinics provide help on ESA claims. You are not alone. Advice today. The woman in Kitchener is owed $4,600. She can recover $864 today. She knows now. So do you. Send this to your coworkers. Close the gap. One by one. More professional B-roll footage. Highest quality 4K visuals. Editorial documentary feel. Warm natural light. Crisp edges. No grain. Clean. High contrast. Sharp detail. 4K cinematic. Sunset lighting. Detailed macro shots. Professional workspace aesthetics. Minimalist and clean. High quality production value. Every scene polished. Cinematic transition. High-end keyboard. Typing hands. Macro focus. Classic law library atmosphere. Intellectual and authoritative. Deep focus. Sharp textures. Professional documentary quality. Cinematic depth of field. 4K pan. Legal books. Leather volumes. Authoritative look. Intellectual mood. Deep focus. Sharp textures. 4K high resolution. Modern corporate aesthetic. High-end lighting design. Professional B-roll. 4K resolution. Clean and watermark-free. Essential mode quality. Handpicked scenes. Cool blue. Boardroom bokeh. High-end dynamic movement. High-quality urban B-roll. 4K 60 frames per second feel. Professional editorial documentary. No stock watermarks. Cinematic lighting. Sharp and clear. Excellence. Transit train. City movement. Dynamic blur. 4K 60F. Natural beauty of Canada. High-quality landscape B-roll. 4K cinematic drone footage. Professional editorial value. Clean and polished. No watermarks. Grand scale. Autumn forest. Vibrant colors. Lush, human element. High-quality macro B-roll. Cinematic lighting. Professional editorial style. Sharp focus. No grain. Essential mode peak quality. Polished. Clear. Intense focus. eye reflection, data SCR, abstract high-quality B-roll, 4K resolution, professional studio lighting, clean and crisp, no watermarks, essential mode excellence, every scene handcrafted, polished, slow motion, falling water, high aesthetic perfection, high quality interior B-roll, cinematic wide angle, professional editorial look, no stock watermarks, sharp textures, essential mode quality, done, art gallery, minimalist clean, high-tech details, professional B-roll, 4K cinematic macro, sharp focus, no grain, essential mode excellence, polished for high quality, no watermarks, clean, high-tech chip, macro focus, tech lighting, grand landscape visuals, 4K cinematic B-roll, professional documentary quality, no stock watermarks, clean and sharp, essential mode peak performance, polished, coastal lighthouse, grand landscape, CI, modern architecture B-roll, 4K cinematic resolution, professional editorial look, no stock watermarks, clean and sharp, essential mode quality, every scene perfect, sharp lines, modern building, high growth and future, 4K cinematic B-roll, professional documentary quality, no stock watermarks, warm lighting, sharp focus, essential mode excellence, polished, planting seed, human hand, growth future, dynamic urban energy, 4K cinematic B-roll, professional editorial style, no watermarks, sharp motion, clean and polished, essential mode high quality, done, city runner, Dawn Street, slow motion, 4K artistic detail, 4K macro B-roll, cinematic lighting, professional documentary quality, no stock watermarks, rich textures, essential mode excellence, polished, paint texture, vibrant colors, macro D,